session, right? Uh, the agenda is that we are going to do three things. First, we understand the cost behind recruitment. Now, here I'm not going to be specifying on the budget as such, but there's usually a lot of expenses when you involve certain team members, right? So their time is often not calculated, right? So and it's not your direct time. There is also an opportunity cost component attached, right? So what is the overall cost behind the recruitment process? Post that, we're going to see what is the traditional strategies that the recruitment experts use to maximize their ROI, with recruitment tech, etc. And finally, we're going to be telling, how Xobin can potentially maximize your recruitment ROI. Okay. So let's get started with understanding the cost behind recruitment. Now, when it comes to cost, we have to break down the cost into two segments. Right? One is the planned expense and unplanned expense. Planned expense are usually the pre-decided set of activities, that are involved in the recruitment process. Like you're going to use a tool, the cost of the tool, right? You're going to spend some ads to attract candidate. It's going to be that marketing cost. Some employer branding activity for a specific job. You're going to conduct a hackathon, such miscellaneous expenses. They are a cost. And like I said, the cost to involves when you involve a particular team member. For example, if you're going to hire a engineering person, you will have to involve a VP of engineering. Okay, so the amount of time the VP of engineering is going to spend when it in understanding a candidate's strength, the time of the VP of engineering is going, the cost associated with that, etc. These are all the planned expenses. Unplanned expenses definitely, has to be attributed to bad luck as well, not necessarily to do just with bad recruitment practices. It can be controlled to an extent with bad recruitment practices, but chance also has a lot of a lot of importance here. So I'm talking about things like last minute drop off by candidate, right? And wrong hire, mishire, right? Things like that. Okay? So for the sake of our calculation purposes, today is all going to be about the math and finance behind the HR and the tools that power your recruitment process, right? So I'm going to be taking some salary figures, right, and some numbers, etc. And we're going to stick to a pre-C to Series B level full stack software developer, someone with 4 to 5 years of experience, right? Which is the most sought after talent, right? We're not going to take up freshers with 0 to 2 experience. We're going to talk about slightly mid 4 to 5 years experience candidates for the sake of our calculation. Now, let's talk about planned expenses for your recruitment process, right? The first is the time of your team, right? So to hire a senior full stack developer, the person who is qualified to interview him would ideally be paid, somewhere close to $10 per hour in India, right? Or 3 times the cost of the same cost in USA, meaning his salary would be somewhere close to $10 per hour or $30 per hour in USA. I'm talking about not the candidate you're hiring, but your internal team member who is going to be hiring manager, the VP of engineering, who's going to go ahead and interview this candidate. This is their cost, right? And at an average, you will have, after your HR screens out the basic unfiltered the basic candidates. Let's assume that you have close to 100 odd. Let's assume that you have close to 100 odd candidates who apply for your role, right? The overall amount of time it takes to interview all these candidates would be, at a minimum, it's going to be 70 hours. Even if the VP of engineering or the person who's interviewing your candidate is experienced, 70 hours of your senior resource person's time is going to definitely be spent. Okay. Now, so 70 hours means 70 hours into 10 or $30. That is the direct cost of your team. Okay. That is going to be spent per hire. Okay. The second cost that you have to take, this cost will be shared across all the hires mostly, but ATS is the first tool that you have to go ahead and factor for. The average industry standard is $5 per employee. Okay, and the slab rate also comes into the picture here. We can look at close to $100 per month. That is the average ATS cost, right? A simple one. Screening tools, they take up to per assessment is what they charge. The industry standard is that they charge per assessment, which is $2 per assessment. And we are assuming that 100 qualified candidates apply for this role. So which is 2 into 100, $200. Marketing your job is a equally challenging work. Okay, so you can either subscribe to the platforms like Naukri or a paid version of an Internshala or Indeed, or you can go on to go with the pay per click and tools like LinkedIn. You would understand mostly it will revolve around $1 per candidate. So again, we are assuming that we've got 100 people applying to our job. So the funnel starts from 100 people, and we're going to go ahead and hire one person, right? That's the funnel that we're imagining. So for 100 people is $1. So 100 plus 200 plus 100. $400 is ideally the cost that most companies spend on recruitment tools. Okay, you purchase a decent tool with this particular budget. So the planned expenses alone, okay, it's going to be oscillating between $1,100 to $2,500. $1,100 if you're in India, $2,500, if you take the global average. Okay, the cost is basically based on the talent that we are hiring, etc. Now, this expense is, when we talk about recruitment, it is the process that we are going to be spending to hire a candidate. In order to hire a candidate, this is the amount of money we spend on purchasing the tools and the amount of money we spend on involving the other internal team members. Now, we are not calculating the opportunity cost here. So a VP of engineering cost could be $30 per hour. We could argue that in that 1 hour, he could have built something of very high value to the company. But we're not going to that math here. It is just a basic $30. And we're not talking about any opportunity cost here. This is the number we have to remember when it comes to the planned expense. Unplanned expense, the one that I attributed to the bad luck. Okay. See, these are all, if you're a seasoned HR, you would understand that candidates often drop out at the last minute. Okay, so because they get off competing offers at the last minute, and before joining the company, they would go ahead and drop the offer, which means that you have spent 1 month's time, $2,100 on hiring this candidate. Last minute, he would drop, the $2,100 goes to a drain. The remaining your funnel would have expired. You have to start this process again in most of the time. This is the most annoying part of this entire business. It's a very ungrateful work. And candidates leave the company after a week or two, claiming to cultural fit or not challenging work or any miscellaneous reasons. Usually, you will hear that it is their health reasons of them or their close ones, right? 90% of the time, you'll hear any health reasons only. But they may leave. In that case, amount of time and money you have spent to hire this candidate goes to a drain. So these are all unplanned expenses that can happen. Now, the stats say that for every 10 successful hires you make, you have to face this at least for one particular hire. Okay, even though you are someone with a very, very established employer brand, you have to go through this particular process. So per hire, let's take the average just $20. Okay, we'll have to only average it out to across 10 jobs because the possibility of this occurring is for 10 jobs. The most unfortunate thing that can happen, it's a very arguable, debatable topic, but very often you know that you hired a wrong person only after 3 months of them joining the company. Okay, because they may not be performing the way you wanted them to, right? And you won't be in a position to relieve them immediately. You have to make them stay at least for a few months and then only you can relieve them, right? So these candidates would have completely showed a different face during their recruitment phase, or there could have been a prevailing excitement within your team during their recruitment phase. But once they become an employee, they may not be as promising as they were during their interview stage. So these are wrong hires. How do we cost? How do we figure out how much we are going to waste on the cost of wrong hire, right? So usually it's a tenure of the candidate in the company. So you realize the candidate is a much higher in 4 months, right? He's not performing well, right? So you have to ideally take this 4 months of time, right? And ideally, how much of time you plan to retain him in the company, and then the amount of training resources that you have invested in that, right? So, see, usually at this stage, a company, big corporates won't relieve the employees. They would go ahead and train them, add additional training, and then they would have a set of process, but they're going to be spending time. So the cost is very high. Employee won't add direct value to the company. He would be marked as a very wrong hire, right? But this expense is the biggest expense that many companies face. And this is actually a business critical expenses which only seasoned CEOs or seasoned founders can understand, right? And the cost anyways goes from $17,820 in India to all the way up to $53,460 across the globe. Cost of wrong hire is sometimes 200% the cost of their annual CTC. Okay, I'm sorry, it is twice the cost of their annual CTC, because the thing is, you're going to be investing a huge amount of time in training them and making them work, right? At the same point of time, you could have hired someone better. Okay, so cost of wrong hiring is the biggest expense when it comes to the unplanned biggest unplanned expense, when you factor in the overall recruitment expenses for your organization, right? So the total planned cost oscillates somewhere between $1,000 to $2,000. Total unplanned cost, can start from as little as $220 to all the way up to $55,000. It depends on how lucky you find it and how well you are treating the problem. Now, in the next part of the webinar, we are going to understand and to understand, how experts solve this problem. Let me be very, very categorical over here. Planned expense has a solution. I'm going to tell you in a few minutes. Unplanned expense can happen always, because we are not hiring machines. We are hiring human beings, right? We are dealing with emotions and different level of psychology over here. Mistakes are bound to happen, right? And even though you're a seasoned recruiter, you understand that, it cannot be eliminated completely, right? But how can we try to eliminate it? Okay, so what we're going to work on is decrease the planned expense cost by up to 70%. What are the practices we can do to eliminate unplanned expenses? Okay, effectively, this is going to make your work create efficient. Okay, so let's get started now. Okay, with this premise of understanding the cost behind recruitment, let's now shift to the next part of our agenda, which is how do we decrease the planned expense by 70% and how we can go ahead and eliminate unplanned expenses. Okay. Rule number one, the biggest place where you can keep your hand is the recruitment, is finding your recruitment Swiss knife. Okay. Now you have to find tools that can do more than one thing. You can ask me, the first problem I said is because of the team. The team's time is the biggest valuable asset over here. Why directly come to recruitment tools without fixing that? Recruitment tools are the ones that can help save the time of your hiring managers. Okay. A right recruitment tool will be able to cut down your team's time significantly, right? And finding the right tool won't only reduce the cost you spend on recruitment tools, but will also help you save your time. Many people, especially HRs that come from corporate to medium-sized companies to a small startup, they would go and buy 5 or 6 recruitment tools, one ATS, one video interviewing tool, one resume parser, some AI, some game-based assistant, etc. All those things. But to effectively hire someone, you need one powerful tool, okay, which gives you a lot of possibilities. Okay, so when the same tool can do the work of 4 or 5 different tools, right? There's no need for you to go ahead and buy different tools, right? And the mistake that happens is they go ahead and buy these tools and they work so hard to make these tools work with each other, right? And it doesn't happen mostly. The HR tech tools don't work well when they integrate with each other. Okay, there are a lot of limitations, lots and lots of limitations. Right? It is not a robust system. It's like attaching 2 completely different things. Okay, and it's not going to. It may sound smart during a sale. Okay, it may be a convincing story, but it is not at all a practical solution. One tool should be able to fit your problem. Okay, so and it is up to you to find out the one tool that can solve your problem. The second tip to go ahead and reduce your planned expenses, you should be able to predict your recruitment software call before you buy them. Okay. So how do we do this? Let me talk about a very simple story over here, pertaining to our own industry. There is a very famous term which we invented inside Xobin called as the gorilla trap. Okay. What is the gorilla trap? Xobin is an assessment platform. There are a lot of other competitors who act like gorillas. They try to cheat you by overselling. For example, there is the cost of a standard assessment that is varies from $2 to $4. Okay, and sometimes all what you need is going to be $100, but they will force you to buy 300 assessment invites. 2 into 3, 300 is going to be 600 assessments. Right? If you have been purchasing assessment platforms, right, I'm sure you would know you would have never been able to exhaust your quota. And most of your time, your assessments won't even get carried forward, it will get exhausted. The gorilla trap is that overselling is a gorilla trap, right? And not just here, credits for parsing your resume, credits for doing video interviews, credit-based, things that can usage-based pricing for recruitment don't really work there, okay? Because the chances of you recruiting someone great is higher when you assess a lot of people. If you're someone who's hiring from Naukri, morning I was having a discussion with our internal HR, and we learned that we get 800 people applying for a single job, right? The reason why we have a great team at Xobin is because we use our own tool. We are able to assess all the people who apply, and we find hidden gems, right? Now, with the gorilla trap, you end up spending $4 per candidate, right? Your recruitment cost directly triples. $3,200 just on assessment is not going to give you sufficient ROI, right? So don't fall for the gorilla trap. Why pay $2 for assessment, right? See, here I'm not talking about assessment. It's about everything with respect to usage, right? They're all the small tools that charge you per unit that you don't know how much it's going to be. Per role, we get 800 applicants sometimes. Sometimes we get 200, right? Based on the season, based on the market condition, the amount of applications are going to increase, right? And you really cannot predict how many assessment invites that you would ideally want, right? So try to cut down all these things, right? Go for platforms that offer you a very, very transparent pricing, right? Usually we don't do this, but you take Xobin's pricing. We offer unlimited assessments, right, at $166 per month. It's not about unlimited. We don't meter the amount of assessment. Okay, so you can use how much of assessment you want, right? To give you the scope to widen the top of your funnel. The more the people when you have people applying to your company, why don't you assess all of them? When you assess everyone, right, automatically you are able to find someone much better. So not only your cost reduces, the chance of you finding someone good also increases, right? This is the second thing that I like to say. The third thing is try to automate as much as one-on-one interactions, right? So I said that your tool should be saving your hiring manager's time, right? So making your senior VP interview 100 people over a period of 2 weeks, you could argue that the work of a VP is to interview candidates, right? But that doesn't necessarily have to be there. When something can be automated, why don't we automate it? For example, what happens in the first 15 minutes of an interview? Hi, how are you? Tell me about yourself, right? Things like that. What if we automate them? So Zoforms by Xobin can record candidate video answers to your predefined questions. 10 questions that your VP asked can be asked by Zoforms, right? And those answers can be recorded, right? And now the VP can watch these answers in his phone whenever he's free. He doesn't have to ideally spend, so he can skim answers, right? He could read answers written by the candidate, right? And at his leisure time and go ahead and have one-on-one interactions only with people whom he's then confident with. Okay. So here, this is a direct 70% reduction of cost in your team's time. Okay. So your Team's time is the biggest expense, biggest planned expense, right? And with the right tools, you will be able to easily reduce this expense. So the last part of elimination is that, how do you eliminate unplanned expenses, right? Now, like I said, we can improve the recruitment practices, which could aid to eliminate some aspects of the unplanned expenses, but there is no guarantee that this can completely be eliminated. Okay, this is to do with chance. Now, try to have as much as a standardized model to shortlist and reject candidates, right? Start measuring and scoring every single aspect and try to conduct as much assessment as possible, right? So there are something called primary skills, secondary skills, and psychometric traits, right? Conduct 3 rounds of powerful assessments that could evaluate every single one of these. And in paper, document every single, with Xobin, we give you a very detailed report about the candidate's core strengths, weaknesses. With psychometric traits, we have the capacity to access over 75 different psychometric traits, right? And our skill-based engine can assess over 1,000 different primary, secondary skills, right? You can conduct these assessments and have a clear record of the candidate's strengths. Second thing is when one-on-one interactions happen, you can have a predefined scorecard. The scorecard would go ahead and have the detailed scoring patterns of the leader, right? And the thing is, even when the interview is conducted by someone other than this particular hiring manager, it's advisable to maintain the same scoring card, have a same pattern, right? The idea is to build a model, right, which can actually predict good talent, and have a system, a documented process in place, right? Don't try to keep changing the things every now and then. Right? So this having a very, you see mostly the wrong hires happen less when to companies that are decent to keep that keep hiring talent at a very continuous rate. Okay, so and above all, building this particular model, I'm talking about the standard practices, helps you to do one thing. It helps you to rely less on your intuition. That's all. Nothing else. Right? What if you ask me what's going to happen when you do a lot of assessments and a lot of scorecarding? The thing is that you rely more on the data in front of you rather than intuition. Right? So we call it as the a good hire excitement rush. Many hiring managers have this. When they see a good candidate, they suddenly get excited. I'm going to give offer to this candidate. When you have proper data to go ahead and hire this candidate, you can then make the decision to hire. Okay. So this is the only available resource to eliminate the cost of wrong hire. And it is proven to a lot of Xobin customers not to eliminate cost of wrong hire, but significantly reduce the rate at which wrong hires happen in organization. So lastly, I'd like to wrap up this session, by highlighting one particular component about Xobin. See, if you see in 2022, we started with just Xobin assessment, but we have drastically expanded the scope of our products by introducing 2 new modules, Zoforms, which is already launched, Xobin interviews at the verge of being launched. So this tool is Xobin, the pricing starts, and for most of the things, it's going to stop at $166 per month, right? You get to, and there is no limit on what you can achieve. Or you get to do unlimited video responses, right? And you go ahead and you get to do unlimited assessments, right? And you can do multiple scheduling. And the platform is built in such a way that these 3 modules can work independently and they can work well with each other. You don't have to buy another platform and try to integrate with a Zapier or using web hosting APIs, right? And don't involve your engineering team, right? Because the minute you involve your engineering team, again your cost expands. So this is why we built a very simple platform that goes ahead and does all your work, right? If you have not tried, I request you to go ahead and check Xobin.com, right? And check out our offering and get a free trial and try to recruit talent with a platform, right? And then decide for yourself. Okay. So thank you. If you have any questions, you can drop down in the comments. I'll be happy to answer.